Helo agus fáilte blá ormh go trí seascad. In program ag BBC Alba ha dul go críoscéalach gan na bornaigh iontach an sil spórs na Halba agus na sátear fallh cuiteoch second a cóiricha gneach gan móra an lá. Is mis Iona Ballantyne agus ha mí toláite ra go bhfuil Suzanne Lappin cholarúm san studio réist, tí a bh roi a cluich ar son Glasgow City agus Alba. Hín a program noch uréile van na telgam frasa agus té an SWPL hin agus coirta sin arás a Geamaichean Oilimpaigeach. In uair sin tuairiscíonn sin ar nara go SWPL ga agus cluinnidh sin bh manaidsear Obar-Dheathain Emma Hunter. Agus géibh sin an fixtures agus ure mo badminton na h-Alba bh Kirsty Gilmour. Suzanne, welcome back to 360.
Nice to be back.
Now, since the last time you were here, so much has happened, especially in SWPL. Won 4 games so far, but it's been quite an exciting season.
Yeah, it has been. I think we expected that. I think when I was on the last time, the season was about to start. It was going to be an interesting season, given the the investment, particularly at Rangers and Celtic as well. But Glasgow City holding their own so far. Is going to be an interesting season. Some of the results, Celtic lost to Glasgow City at the start, but they've picked up in the last couple of games, beating Rangers, beating Hibs comfortably as well. So yeah, it's anyone's title, I think, this year.
It definitely is. I mean, is it going as you maybe predicted before the season started?
I think, Rangers were probably everyone's favourites. The investment, the players that they've brought in, they are expected to win the league, I think, based on, what's went into the club this year. But for me, Glasgow City have been there and done it. I'm an ex-Glasgow City player, so slightly biased, but I think, when you've won titles, you need to have that experience of, how to get over the line, and they'll be more determined than ever, with this challenge this year. And yeah, I'd still put my money on Glasgow City, but I think Rangers will run them close, maybe particularly, I think Rangers are taking on a few of Glasgow City's better players in January, which will obviously strengthen them, but Glasgow City are ruthless, and yeah, I would back them to the hill.
Absolutely. Well, I guess as a former Glasgow City player, you know what it's like playing in the league, playing in domestic cups and the Champions League, which they're doing again this season. Are you seeing them play any differently?
I wouldn't say differently, but they've got a lot of players who they've got a good mix. They've got players that have been there before, but they've also got young, hungry players as well. And I think they're working that well at the moment. They've obviously, they've had 2 tough games in the Champions League so far, both going to penalty shootouts, which they've came through. They've got a tough draw awaiting them in the last 32. So it's going to be tough for them. But as I say, they've been there and done it, and they're used to this, and that's what you want as a Glasgow City player, to be competing in all competitions. Well,
like you say, 2 penalty shootouts, 2 successive penalty shootout wins. I mean, Leigh Alexander's showing her quality yet again. Yeah, I mean, if you get Leigh in your team, I think you fancy yourself at any penalty shootout. But as I said at the time, you don't want the game to go to a penalty shootout, but she's more than earned her merit this season for Glasgow City already. Some great saves in the games, but when it got to the penalty shootout, she was an absolute rock for them at the back. So yeah, they'll be hoping for more if it does go to penalty shootouts in the next round. Well, that's the thing, Sparta Prague now. I mean, some huge names in the Champions League, but that's still a really tough tie.
It's a very tough tie. I think Velour was as well. I think that game overall was probably even. I'd say Glasgow City dominated the first half, but more Velour in the second half. And it is a really tough tie. Glasgow City, each round, they'll have to get better and better, and they'll have to be better than they were against Velour to progress. But they know what it takes to get it over the line, and they've got everyone's backing to help them get there.
How do they approach this game now?
I think they just approach it as, Glasgow City are a team who, they aren't defensively minded. They have one way of playing, one style of playing, and that's get the ball down and move it quick and trust each other's ability. But they're going to have to do their homework. They're going to have to know what they're up against, be disciplined, know when to go forward and press. But I think Scott has been there a long time now. He knows his players, he knows how to get the best out of them, and yeah, I think they can do it.
From a more personal point of view, when you're playing, I mean, did you ever struggle balancing these really tough games with also your personal life, working full time, studying full time?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. Training as much as we did when I played, 4 times a week at night, and training in the mornings and the games at the weekend, and But that's what you played football for. You know, I had my job at the same time, which was obviously, you know, my career, but my football was equally as important to me. And you know, some of the girls have done that consistently as well. You look at the likes of Jo Love with her career, and you know, that's what they want to do, and that's what they love, and yeah, they'll continue to do so.
Good, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
As you nátáisiúil le Geamaichean SWPL hin, agus apar Geamar san na Geamaichean a cúr bhog le hebs agus Celtic go canichaigh fan na solis ag pàirce Ainsley.
Le Ross Halkaga, bharrachd, mar a bhaid during a game sin jacket a chai agus si who the count man agus Gia give it a goal up there. Jody Bartle is Celtic a chuid thoiseach picking a streak minute in a game. With Cavill Donald, Rachel Donaldson agus try go Marcus vat the counts and bharrachd agus Anita Marcus agus hockey sin agus skippelte Shechat SWPL agus hat is 4 smach egal in the game seo Celtic and a big advantage in a skip of Fran Alonso in the goal uga Cugnoni. Tussen Adams, Ross is stay out the dripse ha reach the Ep12 Mitchell Boyle Lishan Wolach won a spot finish agus Suas two vele Gain a fallach go iadach Summer Green Norsen it agus Merach Troch Berach for Allison Gakel a tríse the son Anita Natalie Ross face Munion in the open the killer falafa Kiek Robertson oh he's up at tail Elisa Robertson Green Norsen going to son Ross they go try a cut a show Natalie Ross up at tail Donjadish. Agus dripse had het harakat agus hat pots in the chuide state. Agus sappe the brakkesin.
Suzanne, just looking across those games, I mean, another great weekend of football in the top flight.
It was, lots of goals, particularly the game on the Friday night. I thought it was a really big statement from Celtic, going up against Hibs, who have consistently been, at the top of the table the last number of years. To go out and beat them convincingly as they did, I thought was a massive statement from them on the Friday night.
How are you seeing this Celtic squad play differently this year? Do you think they've really transformed under Fran Alonso?
I think they have in the last couple of games. Their first game against Glasgow City, I must be honest, when I seen Glasgow City, I think it was 2-0, they beat them, and it was more convincing than that. I'd sort of written them off, if I'm honest, that nothing had really changed. But to see how they performed against Rangers and getting that win right at the end against them, and then particularly on Friday night, I thought they looked like a real team, as if they really knew their tactics and what they wanted. They were all working for each other. There seemed a hunger about them. So I think they'll be looking to do well this year and hopefully take silverware from their point of view.
Well, do you think they could mount a challenge?
Yeah, I think based on that on Friday evening and based on the last couple of results, I think as a Celtic player this year, with the changes they've made, they should be looking to challenge. So I don't see any reason why they won't be up there knocking on the door at the end of the season.
Well, for the likes of Hibs in that game on Friday night, a 6-2 defeat, that's not one to take well.
No, it's not, and it's not like Hibs. Hibs are consistently hard to beat. They always have been. They were when I played against them as well, and it'll not be something that they're used to. Hibs have been a team who've always produced quality players, and season after season they seem to lose them, maybe to England or elsewhere. But I don't doubt, they've got a great young bunch of girls who are waiting to, show what they can do, and they'll pick themselves up from this. Where
do you think they go from here?
I think they need to find, themselves again and work out, what are their strengths and play to that. I've not seen much of them this season, but on Friday I thought they were really disjointed. But they've got people in their team, the likes of Joelle and the likes of Rachel Boyle, who have been there and done it, and will pick the girls up.
Well, we'll just move on to Glasgow City versus Hearts. I mean, Glasgow City, 100% record so far, doing the job, getting it done. Yeah, and that's, I think they'll thrive on it this year, if I'm honest. Everyone writes them off. I think even more so this year than maybe a couple of seasons before. And they do thrive on it. They're winners deep down, and as you say, 100% record. They're just taking the league games as they come, as we always did as Glasgow City players, and just knocking them off and knocking up the points. And for a team like Hearts, it's been a difficult season. It's going to be a difficult season. What do they need to do?
Yeah, I think they know, the challenge that they face this season. But I think, for a team like Hearts, it's always about progressing as a footballer, whether that be individually or collectively. And I think, the manager of Hearts just needs to keep the girls motivated and show them the improvements they're making week on week, and hopefully they will be able to get a result this year that they're proud of.
And for Glasgow City, I mean, they are losing a couple of players to Rangers shortly. How will they cope with that?
If I'm honest, I think it's massive. In the Glasgow City games that I've witnessed this season, Rachel McLaughlin, Kirsty Gilmour up front, Sam Kerr, they're massive players. It's a big player from every line, defence, middle and forward, and they are really, really important players for Glasgow City. So I think Scott will need to be having a plan B for when they go, because it will be a big loss, and to see them go to Rangers, who are going to be, in my opinion, Glasgow City's biggest challengers for the title. It does swing the advantage Rangers' way come January.
Well, they have, I mean, even before these Glasgow City players join them, they have had a great start to the season. Although on Sunday playing Forfar Farmington, I mean, the scoreline's 3-1, but Forfar put up a good fight.
They did. I don't think they've got to the levels that they want to be at yet, Rangers, if I'm honest. Obviously the defeat to Celtic and then the performance at the weekend probably wasn't up to the standards that they will be setting themselves now. They've went professional, if you like, and invested all that money, and yeah, I think they need to improve their performances, but they've picked up points, albeit they've lost one game, and as we say, I think getting those 3 players in January, it's a big addition for them.
And if we just look at Spartans, Motherwell, another win for Spartans. They'll be happy with that, won't they?
Yeah, Spartans are a team who they just go about their business. They're consistent. They're hard to beat for teams, and they do the job well. And yeah, another victory, as you say, for them.
And then Spartans Motherwell, another win for Spartans. They'll be happy with that, won't they?
Yeah, they will. They're a very consistent team, Spartans. They're always hard to beat. They always gave difficult games when I played against them as a Glasgow City player, and you know, they're a team who just continue to churn out results as well.
Absolutely. Nuair seo ha gnáchan ar bhí go maith feisc an SWPL a hen, ach san darna rain ha skippe Obar-Dheathain fata ar thoiseach. Fríonn sin se mhanaidsear Emma Hunter mús lí éiche an na bhallcóise.
Le bhfuil Obar-Dheathain sa tolaite ag bar an SWPL agá. Ha co-manager Emma Hunter a miaurachug id cimir a háisig an immers aiche an an ballcóise, agus an dochas go bhfuil go mat J-fríte don na cluicheadair a ha iontach a coache.
I guess it goes way back when I was probably in primary school, so even as young as 5 or 6 I remember, I think my dad must have been quite into football, and I was a bit of a tomboy right from the start, so I think just started playing outside in the local park and street with the neighbours and played football a lot then. Didn't just really playing in the school playground, you know, when you put your jackets down and you have a little kick about with your mates and things, and yeah, I didn't think anything of it. Then later, when I was in about P6, 7, the local primary school were having trials for their team to play for the primary school team. So I'd gone along to the trials and was successful. I think the 2 dads that were taking the team at the time didn't really think anything of it, selected me, and it wasn't until they got a phone call saying I actually wasn't allowed to play because I was a female. That was really tough to take it at that time when I was that young. But all I wanted to do was play, so I kept training with them. I would turn up and watch the games. And yeah, unfortunately, I'd end up pouring the orange juice at half time for the boys that were playing, which looking back at now is actually really sad to think that was actually something that was let happen. But I mean, it's moved on so much from then, right?
As Joey and Brishuk do like I easily, na gutty bow kosher a gleich called the Gilan, but you took undoid the Emma, delicate, this is it.
If I'm being honest, the way that I tried to get around it was I actually tried to be a boy. So in a strange way, I look back and I had like a really short haircut, I dressed like a boy, a real tomboy, and I probably just wanted to be a boy, and that's probably how I dealt with it, is that I tried to sort of mask myself to be a boy so that I wasn't different. And I remember once I was playing in the local sports centre. It was like a day camp, and the boys thought I was actually a boy, and they were asking my name. They were saying, "Oh, what's your name?" And I was thinking, I can't say my real name here because they think I'm a boy. So I remember, I think I made up a boy's name. I can't even remember what name it was, but they started calling me that, the boy's name, and that was just my way of maybe fitting in. And looking back now, I can totally understand why I did that. I didn't actually want to be a boy. It was maybe an opportunity for me to be part of that football environment. So yeah, I basically tried to become a boy to fit in.
Le mis mór in spores, ach as unis sliad de chlawniana connection. Len Emma in immers balkosje le vi kleich kolle die buddenich na sinje. Ruttigen lees willy laan hinge a ring buddenich hele.
It was really difficult, and it was my life. And look, I'm not the only female that's been in this experience. There's so many before me as well, and at the same time as me growing up. And we were all in a similar situation. So the way football was my life, so I had to play football. So I found a local women's team, which was called East End at the time. So it was East End. I was 12 years old and I was playing with grown women on the football pitch at that time. And thankfully, because I was so into my football, I was actually okay on the ball, and I could play around with them. But physically, I was probably way off the mark. But that's how I did it. I just got involved in a women's team when I was 12 years old, and sort of grew from there. I continued playing for East End, and they actually became Cove Rangers women at the time. They were a really successful Scottish team. I played for them for a long time, was playing alongside some great players, and at under 16 level I'd got selected to play for the national team at 16, and then obviously managed to keep going and played under 20 level as well. So I think looking back, I was actually quite a good young talent at the time. So it was my life. I wanted to be a football player, that's all I could think of, and probably to the detriment to my schoolwork and the things that I did at nights. All I did was go out and play football, and that's all I wanted to do.
Biel glasje is lán chinj. Hannig Emma go cúnach ag h-og, Alba acal, gus driach is bear on the ball kosher a lenting, h-Alba.
I was probably one of the fortunate few that sort of threw myself out there, and I ended up going over to the USA to try and pursue a career. It was probably the only option at the time for me to try and find a way into football and to play more regularly. So I'd actually gone over to coach during the summertime with the view of trying to make some contacts. At the time I was 17 years old. I can't even believe my mum let me go on that flight on my own to the USA when I was 17. But I did it because that's all I wanted. It was the biggest dream I had, and you know, I just wanted to do something. So I ended up going to Alabama, the deep south, which at the time I thought it was going to be really hot, nice weather, great, but it was actually a nightmare because it was too hot. So yeah, I moved to the USA to try and do that, and I got a scholarship to go to college and play football at the same time. Previously, before at 16, I'd picked up a really bad injury, my ACL. I'd managed to get fit, and then I went to the US. So yeah, I tried to find a career out there if I could. The US probably wasn't the best move for me in terms of football career. I think the season was short. There was a real emphasis on fitness, and technically it wasn't as good back then, and it was in the 90s really, so didn't technically get any better as a footballer. I ended up going to Sweden for a wee spell, came back to Scotland, and I guess because I'd spent so much time in football, it was the only thing I knew and what I was really good at in sport. So then I started to find some jobs in the sports industry and made a bit of a career in sports development work. And then kept playing football on the side, so had to find a balance of work and play.
Yn jay grashag, hwgslia Emma is stuit de chotjig, rwyd a hannig amach as a vian, a weiche gus pàirce chumal on some spores.
I think as you get older, you sort of realise that I wasn't the best player, and I was struggling, I wasn't getting a game. Because I had coached in America already, it's just something that naturally fell into me. I'm just so passionate about women's football as well. I seen that there was an opportunity to find a way into coaching, so I started working with local grassroots teams and coaching there, getting my badges and just really getting involved in the game, even when my career had finished when I was playing, so just to keep involved in it. And if I'm being honest, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I'm involved in the women's game, I think the more and more you get an appetite to change things and make it that little bit better.
Suzanne, that's some story from Emma and stuff that was going on not too long ago. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's pretty sad to hear, you know, some of her journey in football. But it's the reality of how it was, you know, back then. Obviously, Emma was, you know, a bit before me, the things she was talking about, but there is similar experiences, as she touched on, for loads of females who've now stopped playing the game. You know, it was difficult to, as a young female in this country, to actually find a team to go and thrive and play among. So it was difficult, and our stories there in relation to the playing alongside the boys, I can certainly relate to.
And especially relate to doing it because you love the game so much.
Yeah, 100%. You know, that's the thing. You know, females love the game as much as men who get the privilege of, you know, playing it professionally in every country in the world, pretty much. You know, and as grown up as a young girl in this country, it was difficult. You know, I played alongside boys until I was 12 years old before I eventually found a girls platform, on Cumbernauld Cosmos, which was a really good girls setup. But until that point, you know, I didn't know of any girls teams. It was all boys teams. I actually wrote a letter to Tommy Burns at Celtic, because I was a massive Celtic fan, asking why Celtic never had a ladies team, which nobody will believe me, but he actually did write me back and tell me that it was something that was going to happen in the future, which it obviously has done now. But you know, that was the desperation of young girls growing up, that there was no teams that they could see and touch, and they couldn't achieve what they wanted to achieve.
I guess that's the thing now. I mean, things have moved on. They're maybe not where they could be, but the likes of Scotland is a great example, the Scotland setup and that Scotland squad. Yeah,
I think, you know, you look at it today and it's light years from where it was. You know, I think a lot of the young girls now, there's so many opportunities for them. They probably don't have a sense of what went before. You know, even when I think back to when I joined Glasgow City, you know, just the transition there as well. You know, we used to train twice a week, we used to pay to play, you know, we'd have to go bagpacking to fund our own kit and, you know, to go to Europe and stuff like that. You know, it's such a transition. The clubs in this country and the national team are on, you know, the support that they had last year, particularly for the World Cup, was eye-opening, and, you know, something that the girls deserve. You know, they work as hard as the men do, and as you said, they love it as much as they do.
Absolutely, and hopefully Scotland will be back in Euro action soon, should they get through these qualifiers, which are coming up. 2 huge games against Portugal and Finland. How do you think they'll do?
Yeah, they're massive games. No disrespect to Albania and Cyprus in the group, but, you know, Scotland, as far as I'm concerned, we're expected to take care of them and win them comfortably. You know, Portugal, they're the sort of team that make it difficult for you. They'll do anything to win the game, put you off your stride, and I think that will be more of a mental battle than an actual battle on the pitch for Scotland. The Finland game, you know, I think Scotland have been disappointed to lose that game away from home. They dominated the first half, and I think, you know, that will be what Shelley will be focusing on, the positives, that, you know, if they actually converted when they were on top, that might have been a different outcome. But being, you know, a home game for Scotland, again, the added incentive of, you know, playing their ex-coach, you know, I think they'll hopefully do it, and I think 6 points is a must from these 2 games.
Well, a lot of pressure on these games, because if they don't get the 6 points, they don't really want to have to rely on other results going their way, do they? No,
definitely not. And, you know, I think going into this group, it's definitely a group when it was drawn, Scotland, you know, off the back of how, albeit the World Cup didn't go the way we wanted, but there was great performances there. You know, the performances, I think, over the last year or so for the Scotland girls has been great. And I think when they seen that draw, you know, they've really had a desire to win that group. And I think, you know, they should feel that way because they are at that level now. And as you say, I think the 6 points is a must, but I think they're capable of doing it.
Although I guess another little hurdle with head coach Shelley Kerr, she is self-isolating. She won't be there this weekend due to coming into contact with Scotland under-21's backroom staff. How will the players react and cope with that?
I think the players will be fine. You know, I think Shelley will have, you know, she'll have contact with them before the game, and, you know, she might be able to have contact during the game as well. But, you know, I think that's why when you're together as a squad, you know, that's why it's important that all the assistant staff as well, you know, the team as a whole, you can't rely on, you know, your manager. If you're a footballer and you're relying on your manager standing at the side of the pitch, you know, encouraging you and telling you what to do, then you probably really shouldn't be on the pitch. You know, the girls know their jobs. And it might even be added incentive, you know, they know she's watching, albeit from a different view, and hopefully they'll get the job done.
Well, Andy Thompson did say that it is something that they prepared for, but I guess preparing for something and actually playing without Shelley are 2 very different things.
Yeah, I think it is. You know, she'll see a completely different game, I think, from what he'll see standing there as well. But, you know, I think these girls are, you know, they're professional now. A lot of the Scotland girls, they're, you know, well rehearsed on what they need to do, and they'll know what they need to do to get over the line on Friday.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Glywsodd go badminton inis, agus is Ciorstaidh Bawn agad the hocal a Geamaichean Co-fhlaitheis dafydd y Ciorstaidh a Kirsty Gilmour inis a gamas a Geamaichean Oilimpaigeach yn Aflena. Agus hair son cwys na cwr Ciorstaidh Ciorstaidh dólamach an a Rio ceir blina rash.
Ha cluicheadair badminton na h-Alba Kirsty Gilmour iad noch go gaid 3 Geamaichean Co-fhlaitheis gyricasio, a héad túras ann Delhi nu the bhaid 6 bliain.
My job there was to play as many games of badminton as humanly possible. So I played singles, doubles and mixed, just to get as many hours and minutes on court as possible with zero expectation of any sort of performance on my shoulders. And then we went to Glasgow 2014 and didn't really recognise the weight of the situation, which I'm so glad I didn't. But yeah, I managed to get a silver medal there. I learned a lot of lessons through that. And then by the time I got to Gold Coast, I fully understood the weight of the situation, and kind of our funding goals and targets pretty much came down and rested on my shoulders. Gold Coast was incredible, but also just as stressful. I would say. So yeah, all three of them were very different experiences, but I love a Commonwealth Games. I really love Commonwealth Games.
I ghanne di vi stri le droch orstig i de glún. Chai Kirsty Gilmour on an 2017 gus cluicheadair na Geamaichean Oilimpaigeach.
I've seen a couple of pictures recently because it's been Olympic Day in the last few months and stuff, and looking back at pictures and how heavily my knee was strapped and how limited I was in training. I knew it was frustrating at the time. I pretty much couldn't go over, intensity wise, I couldn't go over about a 5 out of 10 or my knee would just, and I'd be out for the rest of the week with just trying to get it under control again. So it was all kind of very patterned things where I knew it was going to happen, so I could predict it and stuff. There was not much like match intensity things, which is total contrast to where I am now.
As je we wie de gorstige groen trappen na driach, ha an taiku clicket er in mar Kirsty is fast Gilmour, had is in a pleinnidh mhanaidsear.
I've been in the institute since I was 13, and just the level of support has been like rising every single year. And I think right now is the best like support I've ever felt in terms of physio and rehab, and how closely they link in with your S&C coaches in the gym, and how closely they link in with the other support staff, like with nutrition and psychology. And there's such a good network and like web of support to be utilised.
Le na Geamaichean Oilimpaigeach idir chuide go fichid a hun. Ha Kirsty a clecha gan úine a bharrachd gus Jeffrey pàirce aice in Ciorstaidh.
Within training, we've just started with a new head singles coach, so that's going to be pretty interesting. It's strange to do it within an Olympic year and try and get to know someone and how they work and how we're going to work together. We're going to have to do that pretty quickly. We're going to have to figure that out pretty quickly, but I think it'll be good from what I've seen so far. So yeah, just a lot of I want to be in the best physical shape of my life. I think I'm kind of there right now, so if I can build on that in the next year, then I'll be pretty happy with that. So yeah, lots of physical things, and also really want to up my kind of tactical awareness of the games, which I think, like, I've got no problem running around a court for an hour and a half. Like, that just means I can eat more later. But to actually sit down, analyse a match, that's kind of the things that I'll maybe put off a bit longer. So I'm trying to, that's my COVID resolution, to pay more attention to that kind of thing.
Gun cronsabi agus an game a cortag via. Ha Kirsty a gamas is bharrachd buing a gleag, agus virrin is na suringi amasid.
I've always said that, like, in my career, I want to get like 4 major medals. So I've got a few European medals, I've got a few Commonwealth medals. So next ones are Worlds and Olympics. So if I could get close to them in the next couple of years, that would be very nice. I've got no immediate plans of retirement, but I am aware that I am in my late 20s now, and typically that would be towards the latter end of a badminton career. But I feel physically in like a really good place right now, and just with the coaching staff that we've got just now and the institute support, I'm actually really enjoying playing. And getting back to competition. So yeah, just to push as many kind of like world-class performances as I can in the next few years, and really, I feel like I'm really piecing together all the things that I've learned over the last few years, and really been able to utilize all aspects of like physicality and mentality and tactics and things. And I really feel like I've learned enough to put that all together now. So I'm quite excited for like the next few years.
Suzanne, as someone who's also represented your country, can you understand what Kirsty was saying about the pressures and the stress?
Yeah, exactly. I think a good point that she touched on was, you know, when she's going to these tournaments now, she knows that, you know, the pathway and the legacy for those behind her is such a crucial thing that, you know, perhaps she didn't appreciate. I think she touched on herself in 2014, but, you know, now that she's got that success, and maybe the success is expected now, it is a lot of pressure on your shoulders.
And especially, like she was saying about playing through injury, I guess at this stage you just want to to play as much as you can because it does come to an end.
Yeah, I think so, and I think, you know, in particularly in Kirsty's sport, you know, these tournaments only come round at certain times. They don't wait, you know, they don't wait on you being, you know, perfect shape and perfect fitness. So there is times where, you know, you need to make that decision and play through injury. You know, you've worked hard all that time, but as an athlete, you know, it is something that you have that choice to make whether to do or not. But, you know, adrenaline kicks through when you're eager for success.
And it's so nice to hear Kirsty now saying, though, that she is enjoying playing.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. You know, if you're enjoying playing, you know, she feels that she's still able to offer a lot to the game. You know, she's saying she's in her late 20s. Sitting here as someone who retired in the late 20s, I would tell her absolutely do not do it. It's too early. You know, she's at the top of her game and she feels that she can go and win more medals. She should 100% keep playing.
And I guess the thing just now is that the postponement of major events like the Olympics is giving all these athletes so much more time to think, to assess and to train. They never had this time before.
Yeah, I think as an athlete, you know, that would have been something that they wouldn't have been used to at all, you know, all that sort of time to think and evaluate, as you say. But, you know, I think Kirsty's using it as a positive. You know, she's looking at areas of the game where, you know, she can improve. I think any athlete in any sport can improve, and sometimes you don't get that time to be able to focus on your weaker areas. So, you know, hopefully we'll see the best of her to come and get the benefits of that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Well, sin air son program eile, ma hang ford o Suzanne son bhí callrooms in studio. Fit is ar lentil gach seachcin ar YouTube, mar sin Jan Cín seachcún éisif go bhfuil a córtafraibh, gon bhí sibh gar lentil agus nach calsibh program san bí. Cynnig y gresio am program acifse, mar sin sgelfan ag fat is farsing agus cúmafod of a coed. Bod ac I spores for noch na h-Alba, mar sin leif yn drast agus gyda ma h le skip a nasianta marach in Portugal.